During my 50th birthday party, my three sons prepared what they called a special presentation. A compilation highlighting every major misstep I've made in life, narrated by my ex-wife. The narration went along the lines of, he struggled as a husband, struggled as a father, and struggled as a man. I left him because he couldn't meet my expectations in any area. The video ended with the announcement that they were legally changing their last names. The room burst into laughter while I sat there stunned. I simply thanked everyone for coming and left. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages. I'm not much of a social media person. My oldest son Salvador set up this Reddit account for me years ago, and I barely use it, but I had to get this off my chest because I've been sitting here at 5 a.m., staring at my phone, not knowing what to do with myself. I turned 50 last week, half a century of working hard, paying bills on time, and trying my best to be a decent human being. I've never been the type to make a big deal about birthdays, but 50 felt like something worth acknowledging. For context, I've been divorced from Bernice for 8 years. Our 19-year marriage ended when she decided I wasn't exciting enough anymore. Water under the bridge, I guess. We have 3 sons, Salvador, 29, Franklin, 20. They sided with her during the divorce, which I suppose is understandable. They were teenagers at the time, and she was always the fun parent, while I was the one who said no to pricey sneakers and late nights. I tried to stay connected, birthday texts, Christmas calls, the occasional lunch that always felt more like an awkward job interview than a family reunion. Then 3 weeks ago, Salvador called me out of the blue. He said they wanted to throw me a party for the big. I was shocked, but part of me felt hopeful. Maybe turning 50 had reminded them I wouldn't be around forever. Maybe this was our chance to mend things. Foolish me, I even bought a new shirt. The party was held at a local brewery taproom managed by one of Franklin's friends. About 30 people showed up, some old neighborhood buddies, a few cousins, some co-workers, and of course my sons and their friends. Bernice came too, which should have been my first red flag, but I assumed she was just being polite for the boys' sake. For the first hour, it wasn't bad, decent food, a couple of beers. People actually seemed happy to see me. I let myself believe, just for a moment, that I'd been wrong about my sons, that maybe they did care. But here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't feel like a punch in the stomach. It's more like the slow realization that you've been standing on quicksand all along. Around 8 p.m., Salvador tapped his glass and announced they had a special presentation. The lights dimmed, and they pulled down a projector screen. I expected a slideshow of old photos, you know, the kind people put together for milestone birthdays. Instead, what played was a 20-minute video titled, The Failures of Eugene Wilson, A Lifetime of Disappointment. My ex-wife narrated the whole thing, documentary style. Eugene Wilson, failed husband, failed father, failed man. The video featured photos of every mistake I'd ever made, the used car that broke down 3 months after I bought it, the promotion I didn't get, the camping trip that got ruined by rain, the half-finished deck I couldn't complete because I was working 60. But the worst part was when Bernice described our personal life in uncomfortable detail in front of everyone, implying I hadn't lived up to her expectations, which according to her, was why she left. People were actually laughing, at my birthday party, about things no one should ever discuss in public. The video ended with a pre-recorded speech from all 3 of my sons, announcing that they were filing to legally change their last name to Bernice's maiden name. Salvador even said, word for word, we'd rather have no father at all than one who was never there when it counted. I sat there frozen. Half the room was awkwardly silent, the other half nervously chuckled. Everyone stared at me, waiting for a reaction, either for me to break down or blow up. But I've spent my life being the kind of man who doesn't make a scene, so I stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and left. I drove home, sat alone in my empty house, and stared at the wall until sunrise. That was Saturday night. Now it's Thursday morning, and my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since Monday. Turns out they need my signature for the paperwork to make their name change official. All 3 sons, plus Bernice, have been calling, texting and messaging me on Facebook. Even Salvador's wife, Erica, called, pretending to be concerned about my emotional state, though I suspect the real reason was to convince me to sign the documents. Franklin left a voicemail yesterday, calling me childish for ignoring them. Childish. After everything, I'm childish for not immediately helping the same people who publicly humiliated me, the same son who, just last year, called me at 2 a.m. begging for money because he owed people from a card game, the one I helped without asking questions. That's the one calling me childish. Maybe they're right. Maybe I was a bad father. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much, missed a few games, but I paid for everything: doctor visits, shoes, college application fees. I helped Salvador with his house down payment when Bernice would. I've been covering Damien's tuition, even though the divorce agreement didn't require me to once he turned 21. I've always been there, wallet open, whenever they needed something, but apparently, that counts for nothing. I don't even know what I'm asking for here. Maybe I just needed someone to hear me. The truth is, I'm not just hurt, I'm angry. For 8 years I've swallowed my pride, trying to make peace. And for what? So they could ambush me in front of everyone I know. My friend Vic says I should just sign the papers, cut ties and be done with it. My cousin thinks, I guess I should talk to them, try to understand where all this resentment came from. But honestly, I don't even feel like doing that. I've spent 50 years being the reasonable one, the one who compromises, forgives and puts others first. And what did it get me? A highlight reel of my life's mistakes, narrated by the same woman who left our marriage for her personal trainer. Yeah, I left out that little detail before, so here I am, sitting with my phone buzzing again. This time it's Damien calling, probably to tell me, yet again, how I've let them down for not rushing to help them erase the last piece of connection they still have to me. They think I'm soft, they assume I'll give in, like I always do, but something changed in me the moment I walked out of that brewery. They don't know the full story, they have no clue what I know about each of them, and they definitely don't realize who they're dealing with now. I'm switching off my phone and heading out for a drive. I need to clear my head, because for the first time in my life, I'm not going to do what's expected of me. Update 1. First of all, wow. I honestly never expected that last post to blow up the way it did. Over 2,000 comments. My notifications have been lighting up for days. I want to say thank you to everyone who sent kind words, advice, and shared their own stories. I'm sorry I couldn't reply to each of you. My old Samsung phone can barely handle opening the Reddit app without overheating. It's been almost 3 weeks since that mess of a birthday party. A lot of you asked if I was okay and if I've talked to my sons yet. The answer isn't simple. No, I haven't been sitting around feeling sorry for myself every morning. I've been thinking, planning. The first week after the party, I went completely off the radar, turned off my phone, took a few personal days from work, and just sat at home sorting through my thoughts. I needed to get my head right before making any decisions. I've never been the impulsive type. Maybe that's why Bernice liked to call me boring in front of others. Whatever, that's her story. Here's something I didn't fully explain in my first post. Despite all the speeches they made about me being a disappointment, each one of my sons has relied on me financially in ways their mother doesn't even know about. Salvador, my oldest, the one who organized that whole birthday presentation, I've been quietly helping him cover half of his mortgage payments for the last 3 years. Every month, like clockwork, I transfer $1,200 to his account. Why? Because he and his wife Erica bought a house in a neighborhood, way out of their budget, with its fancy granite countertops, and a 3-car garage. Salvador told Bernice I just helped with the down payment, but the truth is, I've been carrying part of their mortgage ever since. Franklin, my middle son, he's been struggling with some risky choices, particularly online poker and sports betting apps. His fiancée, Malia, has no idea about the extent of it. I've bailed him out 4 times over the past 2 years. The last time, not exactly pocket change for a guy who's packed his own lunch for the past 30 years. And Damien, my youngest. His college tuition didn't magically pay itself. Bernice had promised to cover it in the divorce agreement, but when the time came, there was suddenly no money. So guess who stepped in to cover his tuition? On top of that, I've also been paying his rent, since he couldn't manage school and a full-time job at the same time. After sitting with all this for a week, I realized something important. Eventually I started answering their call. I played the part exactly how they expected, the defeated father, voice shaky, talking about how I just wanted to understand where I went wrong, and how I still loved them no matter what. I gave them the exact reaction they were hoping for, and they bought it completely. I suggested we have dinner, just the family, to talk things through and find some closure. They agreed so quickly it was almost funny. Salvador chose some overpriced Italian place near his house, probably assuming I'd cover the bill, like always. That dinner was something else. I showed up looking completely worn down on purpose. I hadn't shaved for days, wore an old wrinkled shirt, the whole sad and broken act. You should have seen their faces. The smug looks were impossible to miss. Bernice kept giving me these over-the-top sympathetic glances, while the boys took turns explaining how the stunt they pulled at the party was for my own good, to help me face reality. Franklin even had the nerve to tell me he was proud of me for finally taking responsibility by agreeing to sign their name change papers, like he was the parent, and I was the child. The entire dinner I just nodded, kept my eyes on my plate, wiped at my face a few times, like I was fighting back tears. On the outside, I looked broken, but inside, I was memorizing every word, every smug comment, every condescending look. Not once did any of them ask how I was actually doing. Not once did any of them show real regret. They were only there to collect my signature and twist the knife a little deeper. So I gave them what they wanted. I signed the papers right there at the table, told them I understood why they didn't want my name anymore, and apologized for being such a disappointment. Then I went home, logged into my bank account, and started setting things in motion. First I canceled all automatic transfers to Salvador's account. Then I sent an email to my bank, stopping payment on the check I'd written for Damien's tuition. Finally, I blocked Franklin's number, so the next time his gambling habit gets him into trouble, he'll have to handle it on his own. And then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I went through my email, collected every message Franklin had sent me asking for money, every screenshot of betting apps, every Venmo transfer labeled poker bailout. I organized it all into a neat little folder, set up a new email address, and sent it to Malia, with the subject line, "What your fiancé isn't telling you." That was 3 days ago. Since then, my quiet little life has felt like something out of a reality show. Salvador called me 13 times yesterday after his mortgage payment bounced, left me a voicemail, yelling about how the bank sent him a notice, and his credit score is going to be ruined. Apparently Erica is losing her mind because they're supposed to host her family reunion next month, and now they might lose the house. Not my problem. Damien got an email from his university about the unpaid tuition and the overdue balance. He's been flooding my phone with texts, bouncing between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats. Sorry kid, you probably should have thought about that before helping put together a video calling me a failure in front of everyone I know. But the real fireworks, Franklin and Malia. She showed up at my house yesterday in tears, holding her phone with all the emails pulled up. She asked me if they were real. I didn't even have to say anything. I just nodded. She's called off the engagement and moved back in with her parents. Franklin, meanwhile, left me a late-night voicemail, completely unhinged, calling me every name under the sun, accusing me of ruining his life and betraying his trust. The irony clearly went right over his head. And she's been texting non-stop, demanding I fix this mess, because the boys are in crisis. She even told me I need to stop being petty and think about the family. The same woman who once stood in front of a room full of people, narrating a slideshow about all of my fault. And you know what, Reddit? I don't feel bad, not even a little. For years I've been their personal ATM while they treated me like an afterthought. They thought they could tear me down in front of everyone and I'd just accept it, like always. But they were wrong, and I'm not finished. That was just phase 1. There's more to come. Nothing illegal, nothing harsh, just the natural consequences of their own choices. They thought I was a doormat. They were mistaken. I'm not a doormat anymore. I'm the floor disappearing from under their feet. I just had to share this update, especially since so many of you sent kind and supportive messages. Honestly, it feels incredible to finally stand up for myself at 5th. I guess you really can teach an old dog new tricks. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's been about a month since my last post, and I've got to say, the amount of support I've received from you all has been beyond anything I expected. My notifications have been an absolute mess, but for once in the best way possible. Some of you even slid into my DMs with actual tips on how to navigate Reddit, which this old guy seriously appreciates. I've been reading all your comments during lunch breaks at work, between my cracked phone screen and spotty Wi-Fi. Now I know some of you thought I was being too harsh in that last post, especially the part about cutting off financial support. I've seen all kinds of reactions. One person even called it a boomer revenge fantasy, which honestly made me laugh. Not gonna lie, I'm not even a boomer, I'm Gen X. But hey, close enough I guess. Some of you cheered me on, others told me I should have taken the high road. But here's the thing about the high road. Sometimes, all it does is give people a better angle to spit on you. The fallout from phase 1 has been interesting. Salvador's mortgage situation spiraled even worse than I expected. Turns out they were already behind on payments before I ever pulled the plug. The guy's been living way beyond his means for years. Always pointing fingers, always blaming anyone but himself. Last Wednesday he even showed up at my house unannounced, spinning this sob story about Erica being so stressed over their finances that she now needs medication, as if that's somehow my fault. Franklin's life, a complete train wreck. After Malia got the emails exposing his gambling habit, she didn't waste a second. She called off the engagement, updated her relationship status on Facebook, and even posted one of those cryptic quotes about trusting your instincts, surrounded by red flag emoji. Franklin's been couch surfing at friends' places and sending me drunk, angry texts at 3 a.m. classy stuff. One night he even wrote, "You're a pathetic old man who'll die alone." Bold words coming from a guy who managed to lose $25,000 on fantasy football last season. And Damien, he's officially been placed on academic probation because he couldn't register for classes with his unpaid tuition balance. The kid actually had the nerve to email my boss, trying to get me in trouble. Sent some long-winded rambling message, claiming I was mentally unstable, and neglecting family responsibilities. Luckily my boss has known me for 50. He just forwarded me the email with a single word reply. As for Bernice, she's been on a full-scale PR campaign with the extended family and our mutual friends, telling anyone who'll listen that I'm having a late-life crisis, and that everyone should be worried about my mental health. Classic Bernice. When she can't control you, she tries to control the narrative around you. And the constant flood of calls, texts, and social media messages. Yeah, that got old real fast. Neatly organized by date and amount, plus copies of the emails I'd sent to Malia. Same deal, a letter saying no repayment expected, but the bank of Dad was permanently closed. Damien's folder had every tuition payment and rent transfer I'd covered, including the emails with Bernice, where she promised to handle it. And lastly, Bernice's folder had a printed transcript of her speech from the party, along with screenshots of every sarcastic, belittling text she'd sent me over the past year. When they finished reading, the room was dead silent. Nobody said a word, not even Bernice, and believe me, that woman never runs out of things to say. I stood up, collected the empty takeout containers, and told them I hoped this meeting had given them clarity. Then I asked them to leave, and that was that. It's been quiet ever since. A few texts here and there. Salvador sent one saying he needed time to process. Franklin tried calling once, I didn't pick up. Damien hasn't said a thing. Bernice sent me some long, self-pitying email that I deleted without reading. You know what? I feel good. I feel lighter than I have in years. For so long I thought being a father meant sacrificing until there was nothing left. But all I was doing was teaching them it was okay to treat me like I didn't matter. I finally drew the line. And I'm proud of. Thanks for sticking around through this whole mess, Reddit. I don't know what comes next, but I do know one thing. It's going to be on my terms. I included screenshots of his DraftKings account, his online poker losses, and desperate texts asking for bailout. I also included confirmation that I had enrolled him in a free online gambling addiction program. He just needed to show up. His choice. Damien's folder contained copies of all his tuition payments for the past 2 years, plus a letter explaining that I had paid off his remaining balance for this semester, my last financial contribution to his education. I may be angry, but I wasn't about to destroy his future. And Bernice's folder was the kicker. Photos of her with her CrossFit instructor from before our divorce, time-stamped. The ones I never used in court, because I didn't want to put the kids through a more ugly divorce than necessary. The ones that proved she was the one who broke our vows first, not me. While they sat there flipping through their personalized evidence packets, I calmly explained that I had also sold the house I inherited from my parents, the one they all assumed they'd get some. I signed the papers last week and got a decent price in this market. Then I pulled out one last document, my official name change paperwork. Yep, if they didn't want my last name anymore, I decided I didn't either, changed it to my mother's maiden name, effective immediately. The silence in that room was something else. Salvador started trying to explain how the video was just a joke that went too far. Franklin kept saying they were just trying to motivate me to do better. Damien started crying, and honestly it almost broke me. Bernice tried a different approach. She started talking about how we could work through this as a family, how everyone makes mistakes. She even reached for my hand across the table. I pulled it away. I told them they were welcome to stay and finish their food, but our business was concluded. Then I stood up, grabbed my jacket and told them to lock the door when they left. As I was walking out, Salvador asked where I was going. I told him I had a lunch date, which was true. I've been seeing a woman named Audrey for the past couple of weeks. We met in a Facebook group for hiking enthusiasts,
Over 4. She's divorced too, with grown kids, who believe it or not respect her. We're taking things slow. It's been 24 hours since then. My phone's been unusually quiet, just one text from Damon, asking if we could talk privately sometime. I'll probably say yes eventually. He's the youngest and most likely just following his brother's lead. Reddit, I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly. I'm not saying cutting off my own sons doesn't hurt like hell. But for the first time in 8 years, I feel like I'm not just somebody's ATM or emotional punching bag. I've got a trip to Yellowstone planned next month. Always wanted to go but never did because Bernice thought camping was beneath us. For my 51st birthday next year, I'm celebrating alone by choice, and something tells me it'll be the best damn birthday I've had in decades.